have 30 seconds before we start the meeting. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the February 27, 2024 meeting of the City of West Palm Beach. Can we please begin with a roll call?
Amanda Skyer.
Here.
Kirsten Kellow.
Here.
Gabriel Jolofsky.
Here.
James Murphy.
Here.
Jeffrey Sheldon.
Here.
Kyle Waters.
Here.
May the record reflect that Trent Swift and David Burke are not in attendance tonight.
We now move on to approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do you have any changes to the agenda as presented?
Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody. To expedite matters, with a conflict with one of our board members, we wish to change the agenda to move up 303 Buckingham Road.
Okay. And then do you need to make any clarification about the agenda and what was included in the pack-up as pertains to 734 Ardmore Road? So 73 Ardmore Road, I think we should address what happened with the packet at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
We had a former rendition of a case go out with the packet initially. We've corrected that with oversight from board, and we sent out a corrected packet this morning, and we hope everyone at least had a chance to review it. And our apologies in the meantime.
So to clarify, case number 24-11734 Ardmore Road was advertised as ad valorem pre-construction. It's listed on the agenda in the packet as ad valorem pre-construction, but the actual case that was listed in the packet is for demolition and new construction. And so we just received the correct documents right before the meeting. So just want to make you all aware of that. When we get to that item on the agenda, we can decide if we want to go ahead and hear it. I think everyone's here, so we could perhaps hear it and then decide if we need more time or more information. So I just wanted to bring that all to your attention. So we have that one adjustment to the agenda. If we could move case number 24-10-303 Buckingham Road to right after the consent agenda. Any further changes of the agenda as presented or further discussion?
I have a general question. It's about consent items, and I don't know if maybe with the new division director of historic preservation, and maybe for myself and for some of the other newer board members, in what is kind of determination of what is consentable and what is not. I'd imagine that somewhere there's a matrix that allows certain things to be reviewed through a building permit process, through administrative review process, and then other things that are illustrated rising to a commission level review. And then at what point does staff determine that it is okay to be placed on consent? Just kind of a general discussion.
I don't know if I can answer that clearly in open chambers as possible. Like I said, I'm still pretty new here. From what I understand, consent items are ad valorem post-constructions, some non-contributing properties in historic districts with alterations. And those are the two that I know of so far. But like I said, this is only my third meeting. So I wish I could have a more clear answer for you. Oh,
One's
sorry.
contributing.
Thank you, Ann.
So generally, we use the consent agenda to approve projects that we've come to an agreement with the applicant on. The applicant has agreed to staff conditions. It's less of a question of whether it's a contributing or non-contributing structure and more to do with the scope of additions. So if you're referencing 845 Sunset, that one is a fairly small addition, not to the level that would be a staff level review, but what we as staff thought was an appropriate addition, and then, it really is a staff discretion. There is no specific approval matrix.
Okay, so without venturing into areas that I'm sure Ms. Anderson will chime in on, would now be the appropriate time to pull something from consent? Then for further discussion, I would like to pull case number 2412, 194 Monsieur Road.
Okay, so we have those two changes to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda for the February 27th, 2024 Historic Preservation Board meeting with case number 24-12 removed off consent and case number 2412 moved off of consent and 24-10 moved to the front of the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We now move on to approval of the minutes for the January 23rd meeting. Do you have any changes to the minutes as presented in your packet?
Madam Chair, I reached out to staff because the package that we received didn't have the corrected minutes. I think that maybe Ann can elaborate. I think that was sent an agenda modification. Just want to make sure everyone's aware of that.
Are there any changes that are needed or, okay. Can we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We now move on to the report of the Historic Preservation Planner.
Good afternoon again. Benjamin Slaughter, City Historic Preservation Planner. Since our last meeting, staff has reviewed 184 level 1s and 3 level 2 permits and 44 zoning permits. I also want to point out that staff is in the process of revisions of the 2005 design guidelines, and we're hoping to issue an RFP, RFQ in the near future, and currently have a timeline which includes a consultant, introduction, and deliverables in the summer of 2000 of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move on to remarks by the chairperson. The matters before us this evening are quasi-judicial in nature, which means we base our decisions on competent, substantial evidence that comes before us. We ask you to please keep this in mind when speaking. For each project, the applicant will have an opportunity to speak first. They will be given 10 minutes for their presentation, 15 minutes if it's a demolition. And after the applicant's presentation, staff will make their presentation. Following staff presentation, we will open it up to public comment, which will be limited to 3 minutes per person. After public comment, if the applicant so chooses, they may have a time for a rebuttal. And following the rebuttal, we will go into executive session where we will render our decision. To lead into this, we need to let you know if we've had any conversations outside of this meeting. So we now need to declare any ex parte communications. Mr. Murphy, if you could please begin.
As for all matters on tonight's February 27th meeting, with the exception of 24-02-3411 Washington Road, I, James Murphy, have not had ex parte communications. I had ex parte communications with a Ms. Polly Doherty, who reached out to me to set up a meeting to review that case file. I did not reach back out to her due to time constraints. Continuing on, for all other items, I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Kristen Kellogg, as to matter 21-22C and 24-10. I have a conflict of interest and will not be voting on those matters. I'll also file the relevant forms associated with that. For case number 24-02, I also received an email from the architect. And for case number 24-11, I briefly spoke with city staff and Ms. Cullen in regards to the case, but can make my decision based on the evidence presented before us. For all other matters on the agenda, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Amanda Skyer, as to case number 24-02, 3411 Washington Road. The architect did reach out to me to try to set up a meeting. I let her know that I was unavailable to participate in one this week. As to matter 24-1173 Ardmore Road, I also met with the architect. Obviously, we had to communicate by email to schedule a site visit, which I did make a few months ago. And I also spoke to Ms. Cullen, who is the president of the Flamingo Park neighborhood. As to all other matters on the agenda, I did speak to Mr. Salata, the historic preservation planner, about all of these items on the agenda this evening. I have not had any additional ex parte communications, nor received written communications, conducted an investigation, or made a site visit, or received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to the matter of case number 24-02, 3411 Washington Road, I have received an email from the applicant trying to discuss with me the case. I responded that I was not available this week. As all the other matters on tonight's agenda, I gave Charles Lapsky, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, and have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Kyle Waters. As to case number 24-11, I also spoke very briefly with Ms. Cullen. It was just about a miscommunication with our packet being delivered. As to all other matters on tonight's agenda, I have not received any ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that all disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record. Thank you.
As to all matters on this evening's agenda, I, Jeff Sheldon, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, nor have I received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
I need to amend my ex parte. For 734 Ardmore, I also made a site visit several months ago and corresponded with the architect via email to visit the site.
Thank you. We now move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Margie Yansura, 714 Claremore Drive, West Palm Beach. I would like to know, I don't know if you can tell me tonight, but I would like to know how the property at 800 Claremore Drive, which is a historic property, and the house itself was restored, I think, properly, but there was this big addition added onto the back that is on the main, a main street on Lake Avenue in our neighborhood, and it is totally not historic. It's a big square building with about, I don't know, maybe 8 little square windows up at the top, and it's, I asked Frederique, I saw her at a party, and I said, how did that happen? She said, oh, there's just been a lot of discussions about that. Does anybody know how that passed? I mean, I've been before this board, and I had to replace a roof that no one could see with barrel tile at a great expense, and no one could even see the roof. This is a a house on one of the main roads that everyone has to pass to go in or out of our neighborhood. And I just wondered how that happened.
So I think we would need to look into that further. I believe that case is from a number of years ago. I'm trying to remember the plans.
Well, Harvey Oyer owned it. He sold it. He got some changes approved, but he never did them. And then he sold it to somebody else, and that person sold it to someone involved with related group. That's all I know. But it definitely is not part of our, it's not, it looks like a very modern building, and it's does not fit in our neighborhood. And this is going since 1980 that I've been involved in preserving the history of our neighborhood. I live in a historic, National Historic home. So very important to us.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to come and give us that feedback. And I think if staff could look into the plans, I think it's been, what I meant was I think it's been a couple years since the approval came before this board. So I think we would all need to familiarize ourselves on it before we could answer your question.
Yes, ma'am. She came and talked to me before the meeting, and I took her information down. We're going to expedite it. Get
Okay.
some information for it.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you. Okay. I'd be happy to work with you on that. Do you have any further public comment on a non-agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we move on to the swearing in of our speakers. If you plan on speaking, please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. We now move on to our consent cases.
I move the board to approve consent cases in tonight's agenda.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. If you are case number 21-22C, 318 Monroe Drive, case number 21-10C, 201 Monceau Road, or case number 2409-845 Sunset Road, your case has been approved. Thank you. We now move on to case number 2410-303 Buckingham Road.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I thought I made the motion to pull one of the items.
Oh, do you want to review that first? I didn't know if we can, yeah. I was just trying to get that out of the way while she was recused, but.
I promise it'll be brief.
Okay.
I didn't know the general order, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead with the moving the one item first. I thought you overlooked my request.
No. That's been pulled. I just wanted
Fabulous.
to address the one that she had to recuse if you're okay with that. Okay.
Sorry, so we're going to do Buckingham now?
Yes,
Okay.
if that's okay with you.
No,
I thought
absolutely.
just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
While we have quorum.
I have the one that says updated. Yeah. This one? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Jan Polanski. I'm with Smith Kellogg Architecture. Here you can see the site plan of the property. We're applying for a Class B special use permit for the pool. This is the previously approved. And here you can see the proposed. On the right corner of the property, adjacent to Olive, you can see the pool that's within the setback. The pool grows in conformality as it expands. It is really the only location for the pool due to the historic structure. Here you can see a location map of where the property is located within the neighborhoods. You can see the adjacent property just to the north has a pool that's in a very similar location Both of the properties are irregular lots. Here you can see some other properties that have similar conditions in the historic neighborhoods. Note one of them is 300 Valencia Road, which had the Class B special use permit approved by this board. It's a very similar situation. Moving on to the property itself, this is the condition that it's currently in. When the client bought the property, it was actually at the time an illegal rental property. The previous owners turned it into, I believe, 4 or 5 units, rental units. So it's being restored to a single family residence. Here you can see some additional pictures of the current state, along with some of the adjacent properties. And now we're going to move into the landscape plan. I'll let Todd speak to that.
Good evening. For the record, Todd McLean. And let me just see how this works here. Okay. So as you can see, this property has a very odd-shaped lot. And in designing the location for the pool, we felt this was really the only location for a very modest pool. Our setback, our variance that we're asking for is mainly for the southeast corner of the pool, where we're about 8 feet from the property line. And as the pool carries north, we come into full conformity. So it's really just a lower section of the pool that it's non-conforming. Rather than changing the pool shape, we feel it's already a very modest pool. And I just want to point a couple things out. This board previously approved a 6-foot wall that will be built about 16 inches from the sidewalk. And then just inside that, I've designed some calophyllum trees with some simple underplantings. And then right behind the pool, there's a buttonwood hedge that would hide some of the pool equipment. Some renders from the front. There will be a fence to meet pool code here. We just wanted to show you the render where you could see the pool. This is interior rendering of what the pool would look like from inside the property. And as you can see, you can't really see Olive, and Olive can't see you. Some cross sections just to kind of show you why we're asking for the variance. The top is the very north elevation, and you can see from the property line to the edge of the pool, we are in full conformity. But on the south side, it's a little different story. Because of the odd-shaped lot, this is what's requiring us to come and speak to you all tonight. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Are you aware that there are 3 conditions of approval?
Yes, we're fine with all those.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, good to see you, Todd.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Okay, staff.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 24-10 for a Class B special use permit regarding pool setbacks at 303 Buckingham Road. This property is in the Prospect Southland Park neighborhood. You recently saw a renovation plan for it a few months ago, so you may be familiar with the property. I won't spend too much time on that. The request is for one waiver from section 94-304E2 of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations, which requires a pool to have a 10-foot corner side setback. The applicant is requesting a 7-foot corner side setback. As you can see here, these are the requirements for a swimming pool. This is an odd-shaped lot, as is trapezoid shape. It's not, you know, a regular square, as I think most lots that the pool setback section was designed for would be. Here's a photo of the property. The pool would be located along Olive, right in this corner. And here's a site plan with the proposal, as the applicant just showed. This shows a 7-foot setback at the nearest location to the water's edge. We are recommending approval of this case with the findings that it meets all of the general standards, the residential district standards, the waiver standards, and additional standards with the following conditions. The applicant shall ensure that all pool equipment meets applicable setbacks for mechanical equipment. The applicant shall ensure that all pool decking meets applicable setbacks for pavement. And the applicant shall ensure that an appropriate pool barrier is provided as dictated by building code. And as the applicant indicated, they're fine with these requests. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Do you have any members of the public that wish to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
I have no issues with this. We have approved cases, even bigger cases like this before, so I'm good with it.
I have no concerns.
None here either.
Would someone like to make a motion? I believe there's specific wording in your packet.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board grant application number 24-10, a request by Smith Kellogg Architecture Inc. on behalf of Anne Margaret Levine for a Class B special use permit to allow a swimming pool within the corner side setback at 303 Buckingham Road. The motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted and staff report, which constitute competent, substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that each of the criteria in Article 2, Section 94-36E3 and 4 and 5 has been met. In addition, the granting of this Class B special use permit is made conditional upon the restrictions, stipulations, and safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning and land development regulations and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach. The conditions are: first, the applicant shall ensure that all pool equipment meets applicable setbacks for mechanical equipment. Second, the applicant shall ensure that all pool decking meets applicable setbacks for pavement. Third, the applicant shall ensure that an appropriate pool barrier is provided as dictated by the building code.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Your permit is, your variance is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you'd like to address the item pulled from consent.
Sure.
We don't really have anywhere on the agenda that says items pulled from consent.
That's right.
Okay, so next we'll handle case number 24-12194 Monceau Road.
Are Kristen's items all, your items are all done?
Okay, my name's Megan Taylor, and I'm pleased to present the drawings for proposed renovations at 194 Monceau Road. I'll start with the pictures of the existing house. On the north elevation, you can see the brick accents at the garage here and at the front door, and also there's a brick detailing at the windowsill. This is our proposed site plan, which I'll go into in further detail. I wanted to start with the lot area diagram because due to the lot size and the allowable lot coverage, we were presented with some challenges. The lot area is only 5,607 square feet, and the existing area to remain is 1,375 square feet, which leaves an allowable first floor addition of 307 square feet. So given those constraints, we had to elevate the second floor within the existing building footprint. So as you can see here, here's existing one-story, and here's our proposed site plan. We propose to add on 279 square feet to the first floor and 1,200 square feet to the second floor. This is the existing floor plan, so you can see, there's a really small kitchen that opens onto a small dining room, a screened-in patio, 2 small bedrooms with 2 small bathrooms, really no closet space, a small garage. Our proposed first floor plan, you can see where we're adding on the 279 square feet on the first floor. We'd like to have an entry foyer with the stairway up to the second floor that enters into a living room with access to the exterior. To the west, we have a kitchen and dining, which also has access to the exterior and the pool. To the east, we have a master bedroom with a nice master bath and his and her dressing. And on the second floor, we propose 3 guest bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms and closets, and then a small office. Here you can see the existing roof plan. And with the exception of this screened-in porch and the addition that we're adding, we're maintaining the massing and the roof design, but just on the second floor. I'll skip that. We believe we've taken a thoughtful approach to the addition by preserving the historic integrity, even though we're adding from the existing floor plan or footprint up. We've maintained the front facade massing and fenestrations, and we've replicated the original roof line. And we've kept the historic brick detailing and, as much of the fenestrations as we could on the front. Here you can see the existing south elevation. So this is the screened-in porch that we are removing, and these are French doors that lead from the living room and the master out to the exterior. And you can see the first floor kitchen addition that we are adding. And on the east elevation, you can see the addition to the kitchen with French doors that lead out onto the exterior, and the removal of the screened-in porch. And same with the west elevation, the proposed section. Some of the the garage header detail and the brick accent details that we're maintaining throughout. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
I have a question about the front facade.
Yes.
In your elevations, it looks like the proportion of the ground floor window is changing in the proposed.
In the center,
Yeah.
that is like a plate glass window that's not original. So we actually followed the fenestration proportions of the existing to the left. So I'll go to the.
So it is changing.
It is changing. This one in the center. That one we felt was a later addition. So we copied the proportions of this window to the left. We would be willing to work with you on that, but I think that it didn't match any of, it doesn't have the same mutton detail as the rest of the windows throughout. So we felt like it was better to replicate the other windows.
Could you go to slide 11, please, on yours?
Sure. This page? Or,
One more pass. I'm looking for I think previously. It's your
This-
egress out to the pool area on the new addition.
okay, it's
Right
this, yeah.
So number 103 on those doors. This is just, I'm curious to
Yeah.
see what type of doors are those?
That's, it's like a nanowall door where one is active, one bifolds, and then the other one's active. So they can all fold against the wall and completely open to the exterior.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then the for the ground floor again, when in the proposal that you're turning that one room into the her dressing area, you're sealing off that window that was
Yeah,
kind
from
of the
ex-
courtyard
yes.
facing.
Yes.
Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Now move on to the staff report.
Benjamin Slaughter presenting HB case number 2412, additions, alterations to 194 Monceau Road. Once again, there's an aerial of the proximity with Monceau and Flagler. Site photos from the two areas we can get to, minus the trucks in the way. The north elevation, the south elevation. The request for 1,471 square feet to the existing home and general site work. The floor plan is existing as proposed. The second floor is proposed. The north elevation. The south. The east elevation, existing and proposed, as far as the west elevation. The applicant was very receptive to staff input with their plan proposal for this non-contributing property. We recommend approval, and we hope you do as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions of staff? Any questions of staff? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any members of the public that wish to comment on this case? Okay, thank you. We'll now head into executive session.
I'll start. I was the troublemaker that pulled it. And generally, I think that the proposal is fine. It was more to engage a dialogue amongst my fellow board members. The addition is kind of doubling the size of the house, turning a one-story non-contributing structure shore into a two-story structure. And I just think that it poses discussion that we should probably have at the board level. It's a district, not an individually designated or not designated site. And being in a district, the whole fabric has to work together. And generally speaking, I just think that it's a very charming one-story home. Don't want to belabor that. If a survey was done maybe more recently, would have captured this house as a contributing structure, probably in all likelihood. But I just wanted to bring it to this commission's attention that I feel that these kind of things contribute to the slowly lessening of districts as the fabric of what was once part of a streetscape is being changed. It really is just more of a kind of bring it to your attention, and I thought that it, probably shouldn't have been on consent, but generally I don't have any questions or further design suggestions. I think that the original design had a lot of kind of depth to it, and this addition makes the building kind of a little flat. But generally I think it's a fine addition.
These projects are always a challenge when someone is proposing to add a second floor to a ranch house, and I think we struggle with them each and every time. I always recall the one on Belmont Road, and if you drive down the street, you will immediately know which one it is. And I think fortunately, the way the location of the entry door lends itself, I think, better to some of the other projects we've seen when they're centrally located, because then there's this desire to add a pediment or something to help balance the second floor. But when we see these projects, we typically want there to be a setback of the second floor. And so I think the biggest conversation point for me is keeping those two bays. Is that enough of a setback? Like, should there be an additional setback to have it read more, I think, to the layperson that this was originally a one-story home? We're in executive session, actually. So that was my thought, and that I think that's a point of conversation. But this is also non-contributing. So a lot of times when we see these projects, it's often on contributing properties, and we have typically approved them. I can't recall a time when we've not approved a second floor addition, even on a contributing property, and the reality is they could have demolished this and built new.
Absolutely. Madam Chair, and I'll be the first one, once we are done with executive session, to probably make the motion to approve it. I just thought that it didn't deserve a discussion, particularly with some of the newer board members and myself.
No, and I definitely think going forward, this is something that we'd like to see on, under new business rather than on consent, just because it's such a significant addition and a change to the property. But anything you want to opine on before we ask someone to make a motion? Okay.
Moment. I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 24-12 for alterations and additions in accordance with standards 9 and 10 as set forth in section 9449 of the city zoning and land development regulations. The motion is submitted based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff memo report, which constitute competent substantial evidence.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Your project is approved. Our next case is case number 24-02, 3411 Washington Road.
Polly, you can go ahead.
Okay. All right, good evening. I'm Polly Daughtry, case number 2402, representing Chad and Audra Quist. Chad is here tonight, and we're asking for an pre-construction alteration and addition ad valorem. This was on the agenda last month. We did review it, so we're coming back with a couple revisions, and we took your comments, your advice. So just since there's a couple people that weren't here last month, this is the existing residence. On the east elevation, we're proposing a master suite to the left. And then on the rear of the primary residence, so the addition would be here to the right, we're adding a trellis, doing a small little addition on the mudroom towards the side. And then on this garage, we're proposing an addition and a 2-story addition on the rear, removing this little storage. So just to recap, it's in Prospect Park, Southland Park Historic District, variety of styles in that area. So this house is considered frame vernacular, so it has like the 6/6 windows, the chimney, different aspects of that style. These are existing photos, they were in your packet. So this is the same we were showing as before. The yellow shows the existing to remain. The orange is proposed to remove. So we're proposing to remove this little storage area. A little area here, this is a covered porch right now. We're proposing to remove it. We are proposing still to remove this bump out on the rear, and we'll get into that in a little bit. This is the proposed. So at the garage, we're proposing this addition to the garage, an accessory apartment to the rear, and then a second floor above that. And then we have reduced the size of this master addition. We did modify this front bump out. Originally it was rectilinear. We angled it a little bit. We also modified the roof in that area. And then trellis to the rear. This area, this little green area, we are proposing to add as enclosed area. And then the pink is a covered porch area. So the trellis is not covered, but this little pink area is. So just site information if we need to review it later. So this is the proposed site plan. So again, to go into a little more scope, we have modified this. All right, so the addition, the owner suite, what we're trying to accomplish here is, what most typical houses are, where it's more of an open layout in the center, where it opens up to the rear pool. So we have an owner's bedroom over here, walk-in closet, bathroom. So we have modified this front bump out. We did bring in the back a little bit because we needed to meet the lot coverage requirements. We did modify this area as well, and it has to do with how the roof looks as we go up. So get into that. So this is the existing floor plan. Excuse me. This is the demo floor plan. This is requested last month. So what we're doing here is, excuse me, we are proposing to remove a portion of this wall on this side. We are maintaining the roof. The area that's in orange was an addition from 2017. So we're proposing to remove that wall. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Based on staff, based on the staff report, they had asked for that when we remove this, we take the siding off and reuse it. So we will do that and put it to the facade of the house. There is a modification though, which the owner and I discussed right when we walked in. We have shown that there's hardy for the addition. He would like to do wood siding for all of the addition and the rear, and so it would be completely wood siding on the house. We are proposing to remove this bump out, and so you can see a picture here of the bump out on how it looks right now. There is rot in this area. It will have to be completely rebuilt. So what we're proposing to do is to take that. We do have the original drawings, so you can see that it was a bay window and not a door. And we have the detailing for this as a little metal roof. So we're proposing and taking that articulation and putting it on the front where that bay window is. And then for the guest house, again, this is the same as prior. We are proposing to remove the storage. All right, so the floor plan, I think we've pretty much gone through most of that. The adjustment in the bay window, the orange shows the demo, modification to make this smaller, and then second floor, first floor. So the roof, what changed with the roof is on the application that we had last month, on that front window where that tub was, we had a hip roof. So it changed the roof, the way the roof looks. So here we have the roof matches the existing. You can see where the existing hits now, but it matches where it's all a hip roof. And then we have this little metal roof that'll be underneath. And then on the garage addition, previously it was a smaller second floor. So it was kind of like a tower on the rear, which wasn't ideal. And so we've made it larger to feel a little more proportional. And so that got rid of a gable roof on this end at the bottom. And so I think it cleans it up. It makes it feel a little more balanced than it did last month. And then again, we're matching that, what was historically there on that front elevation. So existing versus proposed. One of the conditions in the staff report was to bring this height from 20 feet 8 inches down to 20 feet, which we will, we're good with that. So that's one modification we would do. On this front elevation with this bay window, while we're trying to replicate what's on the rear, the original photos do show siding below. We can do the trim as we showed in the elevations, or we can do siding, which is more original to what the house was. So if you have any comments on that. And then again, we talked about relocating any of the existing wood siding would go on this facade. There was a quick discussion about Washington and it was a quick discussion about allowing for 2 stories on the guest houses. We did drive down the street to see what was going on that side of the street. So there are multiple second-story guest houses throughout the neighborhood. This again is the picture at Washington. You can see a 2-story behind it. So we did study that a little bit. This is the north elevation. So again, last month the second floor addition was just this area. This feels a little less like a tower, so we feel it is a little more proportional. There was also a comment last month regarding this addition here, and perhaps maybe we modify the roof or we do something like that. We feel that this is a little more appropriate and not to cut in the roof and make an extra articulation. So we do have siding shown here, or a piece of trim to show between the old and the new, which we can replicate on the guest house if you'd like as well. Rear elevation. This is the south elevation. So again, that wider second story. Guest house, again, modified to 20-foot height instead of 20-foot 8. And that's it. Thank you so much. Look forward to any comments or questions.
Thank you. Questions of staff? I'm sorry, applicant. Not there yet.
Okay, I'll ask it. Why won't they keep the bump out in the back?
So the owner wants that whole, like, to feel like it opens out to the pool. And while it has that, it's a cute, charming feature, we're trying to replicate it. Since we already have to rebuild it, since it does have a lot of rot within the walls. You can see the rot inside of it, the water damage. So we thought if we replicate it on the front, that might be a good, to keep that articulation that was original to the building.
Polly, do you feel like that comment's in conflict with the Secretary of the Interior standards for the removal of distinctive materials and alterations of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided?
I mean, we have to rebuild it anyways, and it wouldn't be original. I mean, the rest of the house is fairly sound. There's just been, I mean, you can see some rot down here, but there's a bit more.
It does feel like you're still looking to remove some of the character defining features of the property.
Okay.
With that and the side, I think that Gabe mentioned last time. So it doesn't seem like that has been altered. I do have another question. Do you have something else to say? Okay. On the accessory structure, since the massing of that is changing substantially, I don't think we touched on it last time because I think there was a consensus that that would be altered in some way. The window bank that you have that's just 5 windows stacked all the way across, on the front elevation, how you have, it's not really a mole, it's just a separate window with like the wood detailing in between. Did you ever study replicating that instead of just stacking 5 windows next to each other?
I mean, we can separate them. I mean, that absolutely. Like if we want to do 2 and 2 or something like that.
Yeah, and that happens in all the other elevations as well. I mean, the typical window in the existing house, like single hangs separated, right? And now we have a whole bunch of windows that are big windows. I think that needs to follow more the original fenestration.
Yeah, and I think that also happens with W05. It's the one where you have, well, really, if you look at the rear elevation, the light proportion between like your French doors to the double or single hungs that are next to it and the ones adjacent to it, like the light proportions are all over the place. And I think that you need to just try to get a consistent light proportion across those.
Okay, so if we took this elevation in particular and then brought this size of window that's original and then did 2 of those and then 2 of those here, would that achieve what you're looking for more?
Well, I don't think it's as simple as that.
Okay.
I think that's a great start to reuse existing fenestration that's there to guide the proportions. But I think you have to look at it with the space that you have, right? So if it makes sense that it's 2 of those windows or 3 of those windows, that's just the decision that you would make as, the architect as to what works proportionally there. But I would definitely study the fenestration. And then I also have another question. I know you addressed it, but I think Gabe had also mentioned at the last meeting where that W5 is, that facade is basically smack dab in line with, I think, your trellis instead of really being pushed out because of your limitations on lot coverage.
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
If you want to look at the site plan.
The floor plan?
Yep. So where you have the rev cloud with the, I think you called it the owner's suite. Yep, how that's in line. We would expect to see a break in that elevation that we discussed last time. So you were saying that you didn't have lot coverage to do it. Okay, so I mean, this is a trellis right here, and this is a step. This steps up. So the original is back at this location. So we do have a, this is a separate face. I think you would still expect to see historically a separation between those planes. I understand what you're saying. You're saying the mass of the air-conditioned space itself has a break. I'm saying that you would still expect to see a break between where your trellis intersects your enclosed structure. Okay. So I think that you just need to play with your proportions or your lot coverage a little bit more to be able to separate those because they want to be separate. Okay. Or not separate, but they want to be pushed away from each other more than that. I mean, that doesn't really affect our lot coverage, so we can absolutely pull it out because it does start to get a little tight there. So if we did pull it out 8 inches on the trellis, you would have a break in that line. You'd expect the trellis to be pushed closer to where you're to the east. Closer to the pool? No, the trellis would be pushed closer in. So historically, you would expect that air-conditioned space would be pushed to the pool a little bit more, and the trellis would be and it doesn't have to be a ton, but just enough that there's some kind of true change in massing there. Okay. Or change in plane, that's a better way to describe it. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that the same comment was on the backside, right, on the other side where there is a new wall that abuts the existing wall, and I understand Polly presented a trim, to separate the new siding with the old siding. And, we try always to move that wall off that existing plane. I understand it's going to complicate the roof a little bit. So I don't know if you are all okay with just the trim separating new with existing.
If I may, the reason we did do that on the hibiscus house, we had looked at that solution at the rear, and that was part of what Frederick had come back with as a solution, was to put the trim. That's why we did it like that.
Any further questions of the applicant?
Polly, I have a question. In the drawing that you have on our screen, proposed first floor, is the 2017 addition, the closet, is that shown as that rectangle in orange? So that
In 2017, I did a permit search.
that corner, go back to the last drawing. Is that
Like that?
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. Yep. Is that corner shown in that floor plan?
It's in
It's
orange. This
Got
little
it.
area.
Perfect.
Yeah, we did a records search, and so there were bathroom modifications at that time, plus things didn't really line up, so I started to look into it. And the original drawings didn't show that.
Okay.
Where were you able to find the original drawings?
The owner.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who's the architect listed? Is there one?
They almost look like Wyatt.
I was like, are they shoemade?
I don't know. Roger something? Wortman?
I wonder if he worked at one of those offices, because it's really similar in styling.
Yeah, doesn't it? To shoemate? Yeah, I was like, for a second, I thought it was a Belford shoemate.
Yeah, that wasn't what we typically find. We don't get the drawings.
Yeah, that's the best. We
It's
need to find
wonderful.
original documentation. Any further questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Move on to the staff report.
Benjamin Slaughter presenting HB case number 2402, Avalon Pre-Construction Alterations Addition for 3411 Washington Road. Before I give a presentation, we did receive some letters regarding this property. Would you like me to read them to the record?
Did we all receive a copy?
There's a paper copy at everyone's desk.
Okay, I think that's sufficient.
Yeah, thank you. This is an area location of the property on Washington and Graymore, between Graymore and Edgewood. The site was taken last month. Photos of several different areas of the home. The request, the primary building remove 13 square foot of rear building out, remove the existing 32 square foot covered porch, proposed addition of 489 square feet, the master suite and mudroom, and proposed covered porch of 48 square feet. The secondary structure is to remove 136 square feet in the rear storage, add 95 square feet to the garage, and adding 387 square feet to the ground level, and the accessory apartment with 757 square feet. The floor plan is existing and proposed. The accessory structure, first and second floor. The east elevation, existing and proposed. The north. The west elevation, and finally the south. This is the east-west of the accessory structure. We would like to approve this project with two conditions: that the usable siding be replied to the primary facade of the primary structure, and reduce the mass and the height of the accessory structure approximately 8 inches. Any questions?
Questions of staff? Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll go in. Actually, sorry, do we have any members of the public that wish to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into executive session.
I'll start. I only have two areas of major concern, but I feel very strongly on them. One is the retention of the rear bay window and the restoration as evidence in the microfilm. And the second is that I don't believe the front addition should occur anywhere further closer to the street than where the 2017 addition ends. So that would be clearing one more window for the bathroom and kind of using that line of demarcation to be the starting point for the additions, and that would preserve the front facade, the massing of the front facade more accurately to the street. Otherwise, I think it's fine, and I'm sure Kristen and her expertise on window fenestration, I'll let her handle that minutia, which is important. But those are the two things that I brought up last time, and I kind of feel very passionately about on this project. But otherwise, I think it's a great project.
So is that roughly 5 feet?
I think it's the size of a bath of the toilet room, the powder.
And would you also want the bay window not to project into that setback?
So I think you can most clearly see it on sheet A107-HB, the area that I'm talking about, that using that corner as a line. As for the introduction of the bay window on the front facade, I think that warrants some discussion. I think it's a cute gesture. I'm neither here nor there on it, but you could see that markation. I think it just should be moved back, and they can reallocate the lot coverage. To Kristen's point, it pushes the massing closer. I think it's a pretty easy fix because it's, the bathroom. There may get some complication with the shower, but
yeah, I actually think it's really smart. It would solve one of the problems that I was talking about the difference in plane between what your eye sees between the trellis and then the enclosed air-conditioned space. So I think it's brilliant to push it back. I agree that it's fine for the bay window to project into that space. I think the feature actually helps the front facade in a way. And I think my feelings just overall are very similar to yours in terms of I have a few comments that I feel pretty strongly about, slightly different, but overall I think it's a good project. So for me, I agree about that bay window. I think between the bay window and then that side entry, that's pretty significant loss for the structure to have both of those features eliminated. So if we could keep one of them instead of just trying to recreate them somewhere else, it's more convenient for us. And then the fenestration, I think, really needs to be studied. But based on how you've worked with the board and with staff, I think that, Polly, you understanding what I'm talking about in terms of the fenestration and the light, that perhaps that could be handled at a staff level instead of coming back before us.
So are you giving the option to preserve either of those features, or do you want to be specific as to which one you want to see preserved?
I could be flexible based on what the rest of the board thinks. I mean, James, you mentioned.
I'm sorry, what is the side entry?
It might be best to see in the side
In
elevation.
the accessory structure?
No, the primary structure, A105 HB. Wait, let me make sure that's the right. Yeah.
You go to
I see
A202
it. Yep.
HB, you can also see.
On the north elevation?
Yeah, so there's an entry detail there that we're losing, and then that detail is somewhat replicated on the newly proposed elevation, but, you know, again, it's not the same. It's, I think it's in conflict with the Secretary of the Interior standards, to lose both of those features.
I actually think
Is the north entry, is that even air conditioned space in the proposal? Couldn't they just add that back? I can't. No.
James, what was the question?
Do you need to ask a question?
I'm trying to locate your entry, the north entry, side entry into the proposed floor plan, where it would be in the footprint. There.
The original entry was,
Mhm.
you came up a little covered porch, and then you came into air-conditioned space, and there was like a little like laundry. So we're proposing to put it, you still have a little covered area, and then the mudroom would be enclosed AC space.
That one's a little more challenging because it kind of gets consumed by the addition. The bay is easy.
And I think it would be such a nice feature.
Both would be, yeah.
Put a nice little window seat in there. You're saying convert it back to a bay window, not have it have a door.
I think it would be better to be converted back to the bay, realigning the terrace, you know, let the owner talk about that. I mean, it's not really on axis with anything anyway.
That's true.
As the door. Like the front door doesn't lead through this set of, and there's two double swing doors. One would put a more hierarchy on entry into the outdoor area.
And you would still have room to have the bay window and then a door adjacent to it. I think it's actually a really wonderful moment for the property to make that like a bay window that you can sit in. It brings a lot of charm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it compromises the size of that terrace in terms of maneuverability, but I don't think the terrace counts as lot coverage.
Do you have more questions of Polly, or
I'm sorry.
yes or no? No. Okay. No questions at this time.
So to go back to the question earlier, if we keep the bay window, then maybe the side entry is proposed just as what it is.
I mean, do you see a way that both features could be maintained?
Plan changes.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of lining up of planes, and I know we brought this up last time as well. And that's just another instance where it happens.
You know, I think first of all, I should have said it before. I really appreciate them coming back and showing the drawings, and the graphic quality of the drawings are super. But I think it does reveal a lot more demolition than I think those that were here last month realized.
Yes, and like Polly mentioned, that was one of the things that I think I had requested was a true demolition plan so we could understand what was being demolished. So the demolition plan is actually the first time we're seeing it. Last time we just had a demolition diagram or a materials removal diagram.
Yep. And I don't think I really comprehended how much of the addition was moving towards the street in the last iteration, and having that closet corner existing wall helped me put that into perspective.
I do think service entries are important to the history of these homes.
Well, they certainly are functionally well used. Way for you to have yourself or the kids come in with the muddy shoes and kick them off before they're going into the main living room. I mean, that's what a side porch or a back entrance is typically for. I remember as a child.
For your milk to be delivered?
Way back when.
Sorry, I'm not saying that you were alive then.
Well, since we're discussing it, that mudroom area is pretty generous, for what it's accommodating as proposed. So it's pantry cabinets, a wine fridge, and cubbies. So it's essentially serving that purpose that you're talking about. And maybe the question is, does it really need to be as large as it is?
Any thoughts from this side of the dais?
I mean, you guys have highlighted all of our pain points as well, certainly mine. The only thing that I would say would be is the front. Let's not be selfish here. We definitely want to have that bay window for all of us to enjoy in that front. So, I mean, that's spot on. I like the idea of moving it back. It was very spot on. But I mean, I'd have to go with what you guys are also illustrating. So we can't really add any more value to here.
Thank you. see you writing. Do you have conditions?
I mean, it sounds like we're in agreement about the retention of the rear bay, pushing the owner suite addition back 5 feet to the west to be in line with the 2017 addition. I'll add the restudy of the fenestration proportions, including that of the light divisions, to be more similar to those that were historically present or are historically present. And I think the one that's still, or I guess we're still discussing, or is there consensus about that side entry?
Yeah, if you look at the pictures, there is a prominent feature in the original house. Now, it's kind of been recreated by adding the porch in front, a new porch in front, but the picture, you know, is a nice feature that the house has.
I mean, I think it's all these historic features and these character defining features that make someone want to buy such a charming property in the first place. And I think as a board, we obviously have to be mindful of following our standards, but also making sure that we're not taking away from our historic neighborhoods. I think like you were talking about earlier, you know, little by little. And it would be a more charming house and better for the historic district to keep it. But I'm not sure how that ties into how flexible we need to be as a board. You know, I'm so happy to see that it's a 1-story addition that has pushed the mass of it to the accessory structure.
Mm-hmm.
So that really keeps so much more of what's intact versus I think a lot of what we see is people trying to put 2 stories onto a 1-story house, which never really seems to work proportionally or for the benefit of the district. So is the overall massing and what they've done here enough to give a little bit on that side entry? I mean, I think I'm leaning towards yes, especially because it's not super visible from the street. We would love to see it kept.
Well, yeah, it's certainly easier with the current programming and the floor plan to keep the bay window. There's almost no reason not to. So that's kind of, to me, a non-starter. There's no change to the exterior wall. It's 2 doors. You still have your door to the outside. And moving to the massing of the front, moving that back, I personally would be okay with the loss of that side porch, particularly with their efforts to replicate it with what they're doing in that area. Although I see all of what you're saying in agreement, and you know, it is a loss, but it is rear facing. It is, you know, a minor area in the greater scheme, and I think there has to be some flexibility when we're dealing with these properties. So much so that I haven't even spoken about the guest house in the back. Let them do what they want, with the window corrections, of course.
Okay, it sounds like we have a plan.
There is another detail here that probably we should add, and is that, you know, they are replicating the existing guardrail at the porch, but I think that the proportions are incorrect. So I think that needs to be studied, maybe has an intermediate post to make it more proportional with the existing, and that probably solve the issue of losing that back entrance porch.
I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 24-02 for 3411 Washington Road for ad valorem pre-construction additions and alterations, as set forth in section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulation. Motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitutes competent substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the intent and purpose of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the historic preservation element of the comprehensive plan of the City of West Palm Beach, Secretary of Interior standards, specifically standards 9 and 10, and the additional criteria set forth in section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The conditions include the following: retain the rear bay window, 2, push the owner suite addition back 5 feet to the west to be in line with the 2017 addition. The bay window may project beyond that. Restudy the fenestration proportions, including that of the light divisions, to take cues from the historic fenestration present on the property. And 4, restudy the handrail proportion to more closely resemble that of the historic one present.
Sorry, there are 2 more conditions proposed by established by staff.
Gabe, what are they? I'm not seeing them in
In the staff
the.
report.
Could staff go to that slide, please?
In staff report.
I can read them to you. It's just retain the original siding from the demolition and repurposed facade of the house and reducing the size and mass of the
8 inches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So retain the original siding that's being moved from the area that is being demolished. And then the 6th one is to reduce the height 8 inches of the accessory structure.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Your project is approved. Thank you for working with us. Our next case is 2411-734 Ardmore Road. Oh, thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is David Lawrence with David Lawrence Architecture. We're coming back to you after we presented an initial proposal to demolish and reconstruct. We had went back and looked at everything, and we were also going to subdivide the lot. I talked to the owner. We reconsidered things, and so we're back with this proposal to save a pretty large portion of the existing house, and in lieu of subdividing, just adding on to the existing house. So these are some of the context photos. Number 2 is the existing site. This was the previous submittal, which shows, the 2 lots, and you can see the photograph or the rendering where we were going to add the 2-story on top of the existing house. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. So what I want to show here is that the light green is the existing house. I'll get back to what we're demolishing in the back here. The other paler green are the 1-story additions as a porch, and then the blue is the 2-story additions. We have an accessory structure back here. So the idea is this design was to work the design so that the existing house becomes the most prominent and important part of the house. It is the primary entrance to the house. It's the primary living room. And then the secondary additions are set back a fair amount so that as you come up the hill, this is the most important thing. And then what we've done is wrap the 2-story additions toward the back with the 1-story coming around it and stepping the massing of the building so that the 2-story is way behind. So this is the floor plan where you can see the addition. What I'll do is back up a little bit, and I want to show you This is the existing house right here, and the hatched area would be, this was, I think everyone could agree, was the worst part of what was there. It was in the worst condition. It's all in pretty tough shape, and our engineering reports did recommend overall demolition, but we're going to do everything we can to refurbish what we can on this part. The entrance feature itself is completely rotted out, so we'll have to replace that. So there's a lot of foundation work we're going to. But what we're proposing to do is demolish the existing accessory structure, which is in poor condition, demolish the carport, which, and then demolish this carport and reconstruct part of it, and you can see that in the new design. So this is kind of, you're seeing this would go, this part from here back would go, this part from here back would go, and the accessory structure, this back part of this, which we're pretty 99% sure was a later addition. So this is just an excerpt from the report talking about the condition of the existing structure. So this is the streetscape existing and proposed. So I want to get to what we did on the roof plane was we created these as more mansards, and what the idea is so that we're not overwhelming the scale of the existing building. The topography of the property steps down, so you can see in the plan what we've done in order to, once again, make this part of the building be the most important part, was to step down the addition so that the additions don't overwhelm the original house. So let me just show you that perspective. So you can see that this is the restored front part of the house, and then the one-story portions, and you can see the stairway is stepping up to the two-story that's in the back. So this is the view from the opposite direction. You can see that the intent of this design is to make this the most important part, and everything works behind it. And so the advantage too is that the one-story part of the house, before we had two-story parts over top of it. Now anything that's two-story is not touching the original house. So this is a photograph of the accessory structure. So staff had some comments on the accessory structure, and so I'd like to address those. They wanted this to have two doors. My client has an SUV. That would mean these doors would have to be 9 feet. That's really tough getting in and out. So we would like to ask, we'd like to ask to keep it as a one-car garage door. It is in the back of the structure. It is set in the absolute back. We're perfectly glad to go ahead and add the curvature to these edges to soften it and more in line with the mission style. And the other proposal from staff was to, let's see if I can get to that. Was to make this, the roofs on the accessory structure, at least as we interpreted it, to be more parapet like it was originally. We preferred the way we did it. We thought it was a little softer, but we have no issue with that if that's what you guys prefer. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the preservation elements. Obviously, we're saving what we can of this part of the house. We're preserving some of the moldings and things that exist, the fireplace, some of the moldings that are on site, the medallions, the wood floors. And then that pretty much sums up what we're proposing. Are there any questions?
Questions of the applicant?
Can you walk me through how the current massing came to be? I mean, you talked about pushing it back from the primary facade, but did you have like a general partie of how you wanted the massing to set up, or did you just kind of have a program that you were looking to accommodate?
I mean, we worked from just the concept of keeping the house forward, and then and the partie of the house unfolded from that. But I mean, the intention, if you look at the site plan, was to keep these areas pushed back so that and the existing carport looked to be a logical place to connect the buildings together, you know, the additions to the existing house. So that was, and when we studied the massing, we thought, you know, given how the you know, it's up on a hill, that it just seems pretty logical that, you know, but we kept pushing them, you know, experimenting with the shape and pushing the massing around until we got that to read that when you come up that street, that's what you read as the existing house, and that's what everybody wanted us to do. And by the way, we did meet with the Flamingo Park Neighborhood Association and explained all the plans to them, and they seemed very receptive to what we were doing as opposed to what we had before.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
What's the floor to ceiling height of the second floor of the addition?
9 feet with a vault. Slight vault because you've got, you know, a mansard, so let's just bring it up a little bit.
It doesn't have a site wall now, does it?
No, it doesn't. We would propose to put a site wall in.
So one of the questions I had was pertaining to the location of the opening of the site wall.
Oh, wait,
And
I'm sorry. There, on the front, there is somewhat of a low site wall because there's
Okay.
a grade change there. I apologize. So
okay, there is, because I
yes,
couldn't
there is.
see because it has the construction fencing.
Yeah,
I just was wondering if the opening of that site wall aligns with the front door currently, or where it's located, because right now it gives prominence to the addition, almost like that's your front entry rather than the original front door.
The site wall, there's no separate.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes advantage of the driveway and wraps around. So in the sidewalk, we're keeping that same relationship, so that you're kind of moving up to that front door like it is now. Just the site walls would be a little higher.
You're making the site wall higher than what's there.
I would be willing to stipulate that we'll keep it as even as we possibly can to there so that it doesn't feel that, I agree that's not quite right. We'll get that in line.
It looks like right now it's maybe 2-3 feet in height.
It's probably like about a 16-inch transition, but the site does slope up until it reaches the next house, and then it kind of levels off.
And you're still going to use the original front entry as the entry, correct?
Yes, that is the front door. The other door where the carport is kind of like a guest, you know, like not, you know, close friends, kind of informal kind of a thing. And then that gives us room in that front of the dining room to kind of have a little landscape patio area and, you know, activate that part of it.
And then where did the proportions come from for the two windows above that set of arched French doors on the
In the stair.
addition that align with that entry gate.
See if I can get to that elevation.
Yes.
These here,
Yes.
that's a hallway, so we I don't really have a super answer for that. I mean, I guess we were trying to just offer a little diversity in that facade. That could change if that's an issue.
There's something about the proportion of those windows and the other arched one over the garage that
This
just,
one,
to me personally, feel a little off. I'm not an architect, just saying what I see.
I mean, I agree, but I also don't think it's just the windows. I think it's the massing that's been
Like it's too high, or
I mean, there's a lot of, I think it has the opposite problem to the last project where there's like a lot of projections that are creating these.
the idea was to try to break the, because you got 3 bedrooms up there, so the idea was to try to intersperse masses against it to try to break it down so that, all every requisite piece wasn't going to overwhelm the original, so, because when we started out, we didn't have that, and then we looked at it and we were like, it's got to have something there to kind of soften it. So, but we'd be willing to study those windows and change them.
And maybe the issue is that all the windows in the existing house have a flat arch, and that one has a round arch. So maybe that is.
The windows on the sides do have the flat arches.
Correct.
I'm flat. They're flat. They're like 6.
So that one being the only one with a round arch, maybe is what causes the.
We could do those as flat arches, and the one that's a perfect arch in the back, we could make it a flat arch to make it all consistent. It's a good point.
and you meet the size, scale, and mass regulations for the district?
Yes, we were asking for the bonus zoning of coverage, but our FARs are under the allowable, and we meet the land development regulations. The existing house doesn't meet the side setback, but all the subsequent addition pieces do meet the side setback requirements, and all the additions to the house meet the side setback.
I feel like I haven't had a lot of time to study this because we didn't actually get this application until this afternoon. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I agree.
I feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I'm pretty much seeing this for the first time.
It is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last session, there was a conversation about the staircase, having that covered if you have enough space. I don't know how we all feel about that. We need time to obviously digest this, maybe a little more, but with the garage in the back, there was a conversation about covering that piece. I don't know if you have enough space.
I wouldn't probably have enough coverage to do it, to cover that. You mean that's just an open stair on the back, this stair here? Are you talking about that stair?
Correct. It was just a exploration from previous.
I think this is our first time seeing this design, right?
Yes. It's we scrapped the old design.
Yeah, which I'm very happy to see.
Yeah. I know you didn't like it. It's okay.
So does this include a partial demolition of the?
Yes, we're demolishing the accessory structures in the back part of the house, which is in extremely poor condition. But we're trying to save as much, the front part.
Do you know who your contractor is yet?
We do not.
Okay. But you'll pick someone that knows how to work with historic properties?
Yeah.
Don't let them go and just start demolishing everything.
We already had that happen in this neighborhood.
Yes, I know that. I will say that the stucco if you look at the stucco needs to come off. It's just stucco right through the wood, which means there's no vapor barrier, which means there's no way to. So I mean, it's going to have to come back to the wood lath, and there's not a whole lot I can do about that if without I won't be able to make the building watertight. So I don't want to sit here and tell you, if you say, what did you do to us? You took all it. It's got to come off, or it just won't be watertight ever. But we'll duplicate the texture.
And hopefully you'll go section by section in a way where the building doesn't disappear overnight.
No, they won't tear it down.
Okay.
That won't happen.
Does the board feel that it has had adequate time?
It's a very large addition and a very large guest house.
I know that I need more time to digest the application.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I thought that I'm glad you mentioned that, because I thought I was going crazier, or that I slept through a meeting, because I reviewed the package on it, and there was a different project, and I remember that this building had to be demolished, and we were encouraged to come to the site to see why it had to be demolished. Right. So I don't have enough time to review. I've never reviewed this. I don't know when it was submitted. I heard this afternoon.
No, it was submitted. No error on the applicant's part. The wrong case, I guess, the wrong plans were put in our packet.
An old file was accidentally uploaded in place of the correct file. And
that's the one I reviewed. I'm very anxious to hear the neighbors and the residents on their opinion on this, but I would need to almost recuse myself since I didn't look at the plans.
Yeah. So do we have any further questions of the applicant for now? Okay, thank you.
The only comment that I have is, regarding the garage door. I mean,
I'm sorry?
I would be
regarding the garage
door and the request from staff to divide it in two. I mean, I understand your point. I will try to change the design of the door to make it look more like two, but
we can make them look like carriage doors. We could put a division in it if that would be acceptable.
And round in the corners,
to do that, and we'll round the edges like staff asked us to do.
My initial comment is that it's overly geometric, almost kind of like a Tetris, a game of Tetris, particularly the side facade. There's just, it can be kind of more, I almost want to see more massing, or more clustering of the massing. It's too articulated, or too much change of plane.
Yes.
Is my just initial reaction on it.
And that was what I was trying to communicate with my comment before about the comparison to the last one. Like, for instance, I think you're talking about the powder room and the laundry room, how there's just jut out and they're both separate. Maybe it's just one mass that breaks that plane, and it's not so far out. It's for, so I think it's just a more careful articulation of that change of plane, so it's not as jarring. And then I do have a question, just because you brought up the accessory structure of the garage. And again, I haven't fully digested this, so I apologize if everyone else understands it. But that's a new structure, correct?
Yes.
Okay. For such a large property, it's often nice not to see it at all. Did you study that, placing the garage in such a way that you can't see the garage doors from the street?
I mean, it's almost 100 feet back. It's like 80 feet back. I mean, we thought it was kind of far enough. I mean, it'd be pretty hard to see it. It's, unless we push the garage even further back into the back setback. And when we had the neighborhood association meeting, the people, I think the woman that lived here was kind of pleased that it wasn't right up on the back of the property. But I mean, the mass of this part of the house kind of screens it to some extent, and then the fact of that distance being what it is.
Well, is the garage a contributing accessory structure, the existing?
Yes, and we were contending that since it's given its extremely poor condition, that we were requesting it be demolished.
But then you're also changing the location.
Yes, because it never functioned properly as a garage. Let me show you. You couldn't get a car in and out of it. The way it was situated to the house. Let's see. It was all, there were garage doors here that got filled in, but there wasn't sufficient room to back or turn that it ever really worked right, which is probably why it got filled in, because it couldn't really work, and it's not wide enough in this direction to come in at this angle, and so that's why we pushed this over to this corner to take advantage of this big backyard,
Yeah. I mean, I do think that the placement of the accessory structure is quite difficult for a 50-foot lot. And, they somehow made it work because you have that kind of pattern of its orientation to the primary structure in a lot of instances in these historic neighborhoods. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, the house is over here, so if you put the accessory structure here, it's not going to be a garage, because you'd have just boatloads of driveway, So I was trying to restrict the circulation to this side the best that I could, and give myself, give the resident the opportunity to have this whole area for outdoor recreational area. Otherwise, that thing would sit like right here, kind of in the middle.
And how many square feet is the accessory structure?
Under 1,000.
Under 1,000?
Oh yes, yeah, it complies with the regulations. Absolutely. 497 on the first floor and 296 on the second floor, so it's below the maximum allowable. It's about 800, a little less than 800, and 1,000 is allowed. And what we did to try to break down the mass was to pull the second floor back so that it broke that down.
I think overly articulated was a good word. I think just simplified. It's so busy it distracts the eye, I think, from the original contributing home.
Okay.
I think the diagram that is pulled up is really indicative of that. I mean, when you're looking at the 2-story lined up with the 1-story, like every single plane is different on it.
All right, we'll simplify it. I mean, this is pulled out here so that it becomes a point of interest in this direction, and this is pulled out here so that it's a point of interest in this direction, and the mass is adjusted so that it's even. It appears to be even from this direction.
I mean, I think it's well intended, but it's not doing you any favors. It's like the case in point of the over articulation. Like,
fair enough.
I mean, I'm thinking of other 20s 2-story garage structures where I know of them, and it's like pretty simple articulation of the massing, maybe with like, a little shed roof over. There's like little articulation. So I think going back and studying your historic precedents in terms of your articulation of massing is extremely important here.
All right.
Is the accessory structure connected to the main?
No.
Because one elevation, Again,
They appear to be because this comes out, so you're looking at a side view, so you see this touching that edge, but they're not in the same, they're back.
I see.
So, yeah, it
This
complies
is the
with
first
all.
time that I'm looking at it also, so that center elevation, I don't know which one is. It seems to be connected, but maybe it's right what you're
It's not.
saying. Yeah, the east elevation. It looked like it's, yeah, but it can be. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Any further feedback that might be helpful?
I could look at getting you the address, but this is reminding me of one in Soso. It's not a historic district, but I know it's a historic house where it looks, I don't know for sure, but there's a difference in plane and it's just a little bit simpler. And I think if you can identify properties where something a little bit more successful in the massing and take cues from that.
So can I get clarity here? Is the front okay, more or less, or is that too busy?
It's all too busy for me.
Okay.
What if you break it down? Like, do you feel, is it for me, it's mostly like the second floor.
I think the ground floor, first floor is perfect.
Yes. It's the second floor.
All right.
I think there's too
Front,
much that's
on the
trying to
front.
be accomplished with this like stair projection. So you have like these double roofs that are quite close together.
Okay. So
Second
we'll
floor.
simplify the second floor, and that primarily relates mostly a lot to the west facade. Is that right? And we'll study the accessory structure and simplify that, and look at the precedents in the area to make sure that we get that right. Would there be anything else that we could do?
I think the accessory structure, and again, I feel like I'm playing catch up here, but I think it would benefit from just being a parapet roof. So you have the parapet roof that's on the primary structure. I think that would help minimize the impact of it.
We had these pieces that were relating to that on the sides, and then a parapet in the middle, and then staff. I think if we understood staff properly, they were saying to make it all parapet.
Okay.
But we can make this more of a, I guess it's kind of an irrelevant discussion because this has just got to get restudied and simplified anyway. But I do agree that I like the idea of this having some of the concrete tile roof on it to soften it. So we'll study that, and if you're in agreement that is a favorable direction.
Any further thoughts? Okay, thank you.
We'll see you next month.
Do we need public comment?
What?
Do we need?
Yeah, but I have to do the staff report first.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 24-11 for pre-construction additions and alterations at 734 Ardmore Road. I'll be brief, as I think the applicant has done a very thorough job and received a lot of feedback already. But this is a property in the Flamingo Park Historic District. It was built in 1925, and it is a contributing structure. As you can see here, the site is in fairly poor condition. You've seen several applications now regarding this property, various iterations on what exactly the current owner would like to do with it. The current request is for demolition of a portion of the existing structure as well as all of the outbuildings on site, so that includes the rear accessory structure, the detached carport, and the carport attached to the house. Addition of approximately 3,017 square foot to the rear and west of the existing structure. This includes the accessory structure square footage, construction of a new accessory structure, window and door modifications, and site work. These are some photos of the existing condition of the site. As you can tell, the first photo is actually an older photo. It's in worse shape now, but the rear particularly is an area that is in the worst condition. So the proposal, as the applicant detailed, is to add a one-story portion and then a two-story portion set further back to the existing house, and then construct a garage and guest suite in the rear. This is the proposed demolition plan. As you can see, most of the demolition is the rear, as well as that carport and several one-story buildings on the site. This is the proposed first floor plan, proposed second floor plan, and the proposed elevations. These are the iterations that the applicant showed with the parapet roof and rounded garage doors, as that better complies with the staff conditions on the project. As you can see, this is the east and west elevations and the accessory structure elevations, and the roof plan. Here are the renderings of the project, showing the front and back. We do believe that this meets all applicable codes and standards 9 and 10, and are recommending approval with these conditions, although clearly the discussion has led in the direction that this is probably going to be continued, so I won't read them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
Do you have any concerns about the accessory structure?
I do. I think that it could be restudied. I think that a different location perhaps would be appropriate, or just simplifying it overall. It's probably the portion of the application that I had the most concerns about, given the conditions about the roof line and revising the garage doors. The applicant's proposal to do a single garage door, I think, with rounded corners is probably more acceptable, at least, than what they have here, but could be restudied further.
And the loss of the current accessory structure?
It's significant. I will say, from what I'm remembering of the site visit that I did it's been several months now, but I do remember that accessory structure being in particularly bad condition.
Any further questions of staff? Thank you. Okay, public comment. Thank you all for waiting so long. Linda Cullen.
Thank you. Linda Cullen, Flamingo Park. I want to make something simple but clear, that I am not here as a representative of the Flamingo Park Neighborhood Association. Some people may perceive that, but that's not why I'm here. I am here because I have taken on the role of trying to give people in my neighborhood and down the road other neighborhoods the information they need to be able to make decisions about what happens in Flamingo Park. So I did put together a meeting, I think it was on the 8th or the 9th, David will know, of this month. He was kind enough to come. I would say that, I don't know how many people were there, but almost every neighbor was there. There was no voice heard of not liking the plan that Mr. Lawrence has presented. They were very happy with it. I made sure that he told people that the stucco was going to disappear and it would have to be put back on. I didn't want people to wake up and say that the structure was falling down. So, but in regard to what Ms. Yansura said earlier about the house at 800 Claremore, we weren't paying attention then. Nobody in the neighborhood was paying attention. Maybe if we had been, maybe that the way it was approved and got built would have been different. But that's why we're here today. I'm sure that there are other people that want to say something, so I'll let them have their say. Thank you.
Thank you. Margie Yansura.
Margie Yansura, 714 Claremore Drive, West Palm Beach. We live around the block. I've been waiting decades for this house to be restored, and I'm very happy that it's not going to be demolished. And so I like the front and everything. I think the back from it, it's hard to tell until it happens, you know, but it does look a little massive to me. I grieve the loss of the carport on the side because I think that is a real contributing you know, it's always been part of that house, and it's interesting. But I was a little concerned when Mr. Lawrence several times said, we're going to try to save the front house. Are there any guarantee, I mean, you know, what powers or regulatory power do you have to make sure that happens, so that it's not just a good effort, but that it actually is saved? So I'm happy that it's not at this point going to be demolished, because that was a very sad, you know, prospect. And I congratulate the owners on what they've presented so far. But I do know I have the neighbor who is most impacted, is concerned about a balcony overlooking her property, but I don't know that is there anything you can do about that or not? I don't know. But, you know, it's never been, you know, we have a lot of parties in that backyard. And so I know that's a privacy concern that she has. Thank you.
Thank you. And is that neighbor to the east or the west?
East.
Okay, thank you.
To the west is one story, and that's not as facing, you know what I mean?
Okay, thank you. Rick, is it Rickennis?
Former mayor of West Point.
Before any of you were born. Hi, my name is Rick Rickennis, 830 Biscayne. We live around the corner and whatever, and recently purchased our house, and I had to swallow really, really hard when we paid what we did for our house, because the values in the property, the values in the neighborhood have really, really gone up dramatically. Part of the reason is because of the character of the neighborhood, and that's part of, you know, what we pay for. And so we're very sensitive about what happens, you know, in the neighborhood. And the thing on Canuga that happened, you know, a couple of months ago was like, oh crap, you know. And then, so there's a need to, you know, for staff and the administration all to take a look at some of the rules. In the case of here, we were happy. I went to the meeting that Mr. Lawrence presented, and I think I can safely say pretty well everybody was fairly happy to see that, number one, he was going to preserve the front part of the house. When I say preserve, yes, stuff's got to get peeled back and redone and all that. And the lot's not going to be subdivided, and it will be one place, and felt that it would be overall a very, very nice addition to the neighborhood relative to what's there right now, certainly. The one thing that I'm concerned about being, you know, a new property owner in Flamingo Park is that we do see other properties that seem to be in that state of advanced neglect, you know, preparing for future demolition by neglect, to where, oh my gosh, this has just gone too far too south to save and all that. And just wondering that, you know, with staff and the city, if there's a way to somehow prevent that from happening in the future, because then it just becomes a domino effect, and then we lose what's special about the area. So that's pretty well what I have to say. So
thank you. Well, I think I'll respond to you first, and then I'll respond to your question as well. But I think we would definitely welcome you to bring to our attention properties that you think may be suffering from neglect, so that we can then direct staff to look into code enforcement issues, and then actually, you know, begin demolition by neglect proceedings. There is a portion of the ordinance that addresses that. And we did look into it for this property, and I understand there's already significant fines that have been levied on this property. But yes, I mean, you know your neighborhood best, and you know the properties that may be at risk. And so I definitely would encourage you to come during public comment at the beginning of the meeting to share any of those properties. And we greatly appreciate your participation. And I think that in this particular situation, because the residents mobilized and you know, really organized, I think we're getting a better result from the project, because it shows that everyone cares. So I just want to thank you all for that.
Thank you.
And then regarding your question, which was, now I'm blanking on what was. Could it be demolished still? Yes. So it would be a stop work order, right? I mean, that's like, if they exceed the scope of demolition that they're approved for, we would put a stop work order on it. But what can we do before it gets to that point?
I would say yes. So, if demolition was to occur past the point of what, eventually will get permitted, certainly you guys are the first line of defense for noticing something like that because you're in the neighborhood every day. If you do see something like that on any project, please reach out to the building division. But, we can certainly, as you indicated to the applicant, make sure that a good contractor is utilized that has experience working in historic preservation. Steps like that. I think that that's also something that we can do proactively in this case to make sure that we don't have any unfortunate situations. Not saying that anyone intends for that to happen, but mistakes happen.
Yeah, and the reality is the city just doesn't have enough staff to be out on the street monitoring all the projects that are going on at any given time. And the same even for the town of Palm Beach, which has significant resources. I mean, this is an issue over there as well. So thank you for your feedback. And do we want to discuss any further, or would someone like to make a motion to continue? Oh, yes. You can have a rebuttal. Yes.
The one comment about the screening, I just want, I know the woman that, I spoke to the woman that lives next door. Okay, and you remember that I said, and we are going to do more than adequate landscape screening to make sure that the privacy of both sides are respected. So I just wanted to try and allay your concerns that we are going to put some pretty heavy foliage along that boundary so that you don't see them and they don't see you. Well, there'll be a landscape wall, and then there'll be foliage. 6-foot landscape wall and foliage. And with respect to the demolition, the extensive demolition will be depicted in the drawings. It'll need to be followed. So it will be something that the building department has an opportunity to review and approve. If they deviate from that, there are things that are unforeseen conditions. We can see pretty well because the whole backside of it's pulled apart, but there still could be something that we've missed. And I think that staff here knows very well that when we encounter those conditions in the past, we have consulted with staff and made them aware of it. And I would be willing to say right now that will be how we operate on this, that we're going to get somebody that's got some experience with this kind of reconstructive work. And, we are duly chastened, so put it that way. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, or would someone like to make a motion to continue?
I move to continue case number 24-11 for 734 Ardmore Road to next month's Historic Preservation Board meeting, which is, and what's the date certain?
I believe it is March 27th, but before I give you a definite answer on that, let me check the calendar. March 26th.
To the March 26th Historic Preservation Board meeting. Thank you, Ann.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll see you next month. And with that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.